welcome everybody into the Kent County Finance Committee. We're going to get started this morning. The first item on our agenda is public comment.
How you doing, everybody? Shoot. I'm D. Jones, fashion entrepreneur and visionary. Happy 2025. All love and positive energy. It's definitely Black history, so I want to be able to, shout out to all of the Black historians. Last night I was on Fox 17 for the Youth Justice Influence Esports League, an esports league that I developed here with Kent County 17th Circuit Court in Kent County. It was pretty cool because I actually got to speak on the cool things that I'm doing with the youth. Seeing a kid get off of probation, seeing pictures of us at the Detroit Lions facility at Ford Field. Kids here from Kent County courts, I've spoke on this, but to actually get that on the news for people to actually see it live. I know this is unique. I know nobody is thinking as big as I'm thinking. Being able to get kids in the courts here on surveillance, our justice system, and being able to bring them there and putting out positive energy. Need those kind of positive stories with all of the sadness that's going on with our federal government. I can't ignore that, and I can't ignore that it's immigrants around here, and I'm Haitian, so I've always said that a lot of people just think I'm African American, but I'm Haitian. It's a lot of ethnicities besides Hispanic people that are getting deported. So my heart goes out to those people. But I care about our youth in the justice system. I care about having a fair justice system, a nice economy, and our county being the best ethical, equitable county that we can be. I'm also happy to say that with the esports energy drink that I've been vice president of, we're actually launching a digital currency. Be on the lookout for the PFT. It's on the same app and the platform as the Trump coin, actually. So my social issues and everything I'm doing, I know I'm a natural born leader. I know I'm here to lead, and I know I'm going to be able to get out to those global leaders. And I'm going to Hong Kong. I'm going to speak in Chicago at the Black Student Leaders Athletic Summit sometime soon this year. I'm super excited for all of the cool things that I'm doing. I'm actually from Chicago. I know a bunch of people from Chicago like Barack Obama. You got the Trump Tower there, all of those cool things. But me being an ethical Black leader, I'm going to be sure that I put the city on, that I make Kent County look good. Even if we don't align with everything that the federal government is doing, because even Republicans on the side don't always agree what Donald Trump is doing. But I'm just trying to be the best ethical, natural born leader that I am. And I'm just very excited to put Kent County on, to see the things that I'm doing. The school district still hasn't done the ribbon cutting. And I know that I'm definitely going to be a leader. I'm going to be a billionaire one day, but I'm going to give back to Kent County. And hopefully you guys fix up the basement in the juvenile facility, the center over there, because in order for me to build that esports lab to have a bigger impact, I need you guys to fix up the basement down there so we could build that esports lab. Shout out to the Detroit Lions, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 2, our consent agenda. Is there a motion for our consent agenda? Moved by Commissioner McLeod, supported by Commissioner Sparks. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. So that takes us to item number 3, coming to us from Community Action. You want to take it out?
Oh, sure. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate $2,000 in grant funds from the Michigan Department of Transportation for the Rural Transit Assistance Program. RTAP. Am I in the right one? Weatherization. I'm sorry. I got twisted up there. All right. Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $527,443 in grant funds from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the Department of Energy Weatherization Assistance Program to the fiscal year 2025 Kent County Community Action Fund budget, contingent upon execution of a contract, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary. MDHHS made $454,076 available for Kent County Community Action to administer the DOWAP in fiscal year 2025. These funds were appropriated by the Kent County Board of Commissioners on June 13, 2024, with Resolution 613-2472. MDHHS has made $527,443 in additional funds available for Kent County CAA to administer the weatherization program in 2025 for a total of $981,519. KCAA has completed 14 units to date and expects to complete a total of 77 units with the allocated funding. This funding covers admin costs, supportive and technical training expenses, as well as labor, materials, and health and safety measures to be installed in customers' dwellings. The period of performance is July 1, 24 through June 30, 25. Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner McLeod, supported by Commissioner Steck. Any questions or comments? Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. So I just had a question about the overall cost of the units. We're going from 14 to 77, which is great. It looks like the funding supports about $12,700 or so per unit. And I just wanted to ask how much is actually being spent on each unit. Because I know that this funding covers administrative costs, all sorts of training and that sort of thing, but how much is the average that is placed into the cost of renewing each of these units that is supported from this funding?
It varies. So there's sometimes we run into a unit that could be upwards of $20,000-$30,000. There's some that could be as little as $2,000 to $3,000. Depends what's needed in the home. So we go in and do an assessment and determine what we're able to do. But we have a restriction on our average cost per unit, and we have to maintain that over the project year. And so we have to factor in, how much, if it's too high, we may have to defer it, or we refer it over to our repair program to get some of those things done so that our average cost per unit stays where it's supposed to be. And that's in accordance with Department of Energy standards.
Okay, and so if you have more units, for instance, that come in on the lower side, are you able to support additional units above what is listed here in the application?
Yeah, as long as we stay below our average cost per unit, we're able to do more.
Okay, great, thank
And
you.
we do match those with other dollars. So we have our light heap and we have some other flexible dollars that we try to braid. That way we can keep our average cost per unit so we can do more homes.
Gotcha, thank you.
Did you?
Yes, Gustavo, before you arrived, I think the committee was surprised to learn that there was a long time between an application being submitted and then being approved, turned around. That was well over 200 days. A 257 sticks in my mind. I wondered if you could let us know what that is today.
Yes, so the administration now, you push for us to do the lean training, the COTA training. So we took that time to look at our processes and look at every step of the weatherization process from beginning to end to try to get the project complete. And what we found is that there was a lot of, I'll say obstacles that we kept hitting. So we started looking at how we can reduce those barriers to just make it a little bit easier for folks to get access to this program. And so as of today, our intake process, which was taking over 200 plus days, is now down to an average about 30 days. We have an open and closing of our applications the way we do with a lot of our programs. So we have an open season and a closed season. Once we get a number of applications, then we start processing for the rest of the year. Last year, we got up to 300 applications. We were able to go in there and look at every single one of them, and we are working on about 80 of those applications right now. I'll also take this time to share that we also started moving into the multifamily homes. So we have 2 pending projects working right now, upwards of about 150 units that will carry us over into next year. And these are all, hopefully with this funding and some of the funding that we've already received, we'll be able to get all those projects in.
Commissioner Steck.
Well, that was going to be my first question, so thank you, Al. It's maybe a follow-up on that. Do we have a waiting list? You said you had 300 applications. So how long do those 300 people then end up waiting if we get this grant?
So the state calls it a queue. So we
A
have
queue, I'm sorry.
We have a queue. We have
So
a working
British of them.
queue that we get all the applications in. And what used to happen is that you would apply and then you'd wait 100 plus 200 days before you
Yeah.
hear anything back. Now we call you within two business days. And then you get your application done within about 30 business days from that date. And so that we can make sure that you're approved, and then we set up an inspection to go and take a look at your home, make sure everything's good. And then if we're able to do the project, it's then scheduled with a contractor. The waiting, I'll call it waiting period, is really at the contractor level right now. We have so many contractors that we're sharing with all the other counties that are doing weatherization in our surrounding area. And we have an RFQ out there for energy auditors that can help kind of make sure we're moving a little faster. So we fixed the issue at the front end. Now we're working towards the back end, which has been the contractors and getting enough energy auditors. So it's still a work in progress.
So you're still having to look and find and sign up additional contractors?
We're always looking for contractors.
Yeah.
We
But
had-
that's the slow up at this point, is it getting
Yeah.
the people to do it?
Right. We've just landed a pretty good contractor right now, and they're learning weatherization, and so we're kind of walking them through it. We're hoping that here in the next 60 days they're going to be kind of hitting the ground running, especially with the multifamily units that we're going to try to do. But they're a pretty big operation, so we're hoping they can take on. We've had some contractors that have been with us for quite a number of years. They're a bit smaller, and we're hoping that we're just going to continue to add some contractors, because not only do we do weatherization, we also have home repair. And as you all know, we're also going to be doing lead remediation. We're already starting on those projects. So we are in a contractor development phase, and we are working with our partners to figure that out.
And do you use HRS for any of that weatherization?
I'm not familiar with HRS.
I'm sorry, home repair services.
Yes, we partner with Home Repair Services. Actually, they are more partnered with our home repair program. We fund them about $250,000 a year from our community development block grant.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. That takes us to item number 4, also comes to us from Community Action, the Rural Transit Assistance Program funds.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate $2,000 in grant funds from the Michigan Department of Transportation Rural Transit Assistance Program to the fiscal year 2025 Kent County CAA fund budget, contingent upon execution of a contract, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases of the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary: MDOT made $5,500 available for Kent County Community Action Plan to administer RTAP in FY 2025. These funds were appropriated by the Kent County Board of Commissioners on May 16 of 2024 with Resolution 5/16/2463. MDOT has made $2,000 in additional funds available for KCAA to administer RTAP in FY 2025. RTAP is designed primarily for rural transit agencies for eligible training activities and equipment and/or technical assistance research activities that promote or benefit rural public transportation. The additional funds will be used to provide additional training and technical assistance to Kent County Community Action staff and the transportation programs. The period of performance is October 1 of 2023 through September 30 of 2026. The Corporate Council will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Oliver King, supported by Commissioner Steck. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Takes us to item number 5, comes to us from the Sheriff's Office, the U.S. Department of Justice Burn Justice Assistance Grant.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept an Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, called JAG Grants, from the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance to appropriate $79,782 to the fiscal year 2025 Sheriff's Office Special Project Fund budget, and authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the total award. Summary: Kent County and the City of Grand Rapids will each receive $79,782. The City of Grand Rapids Community Development Department will be responsible for the administration of the grant and will be receiving an additional $17,729 for the admin fees. The funds will be used by the Sheriff's Office to purchase a video wall management system to allow users to cast their screens to the wall in the Real-Time Intelligence Center. The Edward Byrne Memorial JAG grant supports local activities that prevent and control crime, including law enforcement programs, prosecution and court programs, prevention and education programs, corrections and community corrections, drug treatment programs, and planning, evaluation, and technology programs. The grant period runs from October 1, 2023 through September 30, 2027. Prior to signature, Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Steck, supported by Commissioner Oliver King. Are there questions or comments? Commissioner Steck.
Yeah, and I see the sheriff or undersheriff is here. Good. As I understand, the 79,000 is to purchase the equipment necessary to do this projection system, and then there's an additional 17,000 for administration fees.
We don't take the administration fees. That's going to be done through the city of Grand Rapids for managing the grant, but that's not something that's allocated to the cost.
Okay, so the city of Grand Rapids gets the 17,000 to administer our purchase of $79,000 unit.
Correct. They manage the J grants for our agencies as a collective. So
They're also receiving the 79 too. So
Yes.
each of us is receiving 79, and then they're administering both.
So there's two pots of 79. I still wonder, but 17,000 to administer a couple of government entities to buy something seems a little bit excessive. But
I don't have the particulars on their cost structure for that, but it is consistent with what they've charged year over year for managing that grant.
can I put in a bid to do that management?
Yes.
All right.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. Usually the grants are managed at like a 10%, sometimes 5%. Is there something more we can negotiate with them? Because that is very high. And if they're
we-
getting a grant too,
It-
so
yeah.
they're administrating.
Commissioner, it is 10%.
Oh,
and-
okay,
and they're-
with the two together.
From their perspective, they're going to lay that down nationwide. So
Okay.
some programs you can negotiate some with. I'm not anticipating,
Right.
Mr. Undersheriff, that is the case here.
Correct. We don't have the ability to negotiate on this one.
Okay. All right. C'est la vie.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Takes us to item number 6, also from the Sheriff's Office, the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards Committee, continuing professional education funding.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate $271,000 of fiscal year 2025 Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, known as MCOLS, continuing professional education funding to the fiscal year 2025 Special Projects Fund budget. Summary. The state of Michigan on January 31, 2023 passed Public Act 1 of 2023, which appropriated funds to support the implementation of required annual CPE training standards for all licensed law enforcement officers in accordance with rules promulgated under Section 11.2 of the MCOLS Act, which was Public Act 203 of 1965. Although the Commission always had the authority to require CPE training, the lack of funding made it infeasible for the Commission to implement the annual CPE training requirements. With the appropriated funding, MCOLS is now in the second year of its 3-year pilot program and is providing funding for FY25 in the amount of $1,000 per MCOLS certified officer. The Sheriff's Office has recently received these funds in the amount of $271,000. Prior to signature, Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Steck, supported by Commissioner Halsted. Are there any questions or comments? Is that a question, Commissioner Oliver King? No? Okay. Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. So I remember talking about this one last year, I believe, when it came before us, and I just wanted to make sure I understand. So the CPE requirement doubled for 2025?
Correct. The first year was $500 per officer because it was prorated for the amount of the year that was available, and then this year will be the full amount of $1,000 per certified law enforcement officer.
Right, but the number of hours. So is the hours going to remain at 24 per year, or will it? Is that what is the norm, I guess, for this
Yeah,
pilot?
last year there was a lower hour requirement. This year will be the 24. There's the thought process through the pilot program. They're going to continue to add additional hours to make sure that all law enforcement officers across the state are trained consistently. But this year it is just the 24 hours. Next year, I do believe it's going to remain 24. But we're receiving and providing feedback to MCOs, I know, on a quarterly basis to make sure this program is successful and that funding remains within the state budget to train our officers.
Okay. And so do you anticipate then that the 1,000 per officer is kind of where the pilot will remain? Or if their hours increase, I would assume we'd ask for additional dollars to support those additional hours.
Yeah, correct. We're asking for as much money as that they will give us for this training. $1,000 sounds like a lot, but we typically train above and beyond those 24 hours. There's some requirements in there that require realistic training that is expensive to put in and to buy the necessary equipment. So as much as they're willing to provide us, we're willing to take for this training initiative. But $1,000 is definitely helpful for what we're doing right now.
For sure. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this agenda item? Commissioner Stack.
Thank you, Chair. So I assume that this is not the only training budget we have, but for this particular program, does this cover all the costs of that?
It does cover the majority of the cost. A large part of that, we're buying Police One, which is online training module for all of our law enforcement officers, and that takes about 25% of the overall allocated funds for this program. Many of the items that are required by MCOs to train on a yearly basis are things that we may not typically have done traditionally yearly. So there's an additional training burden on our training unit and the need to provide additional training to our staff. So it really supplements the additional general fund dollars that we're using for training and focuses the money allocated for MCOs on the initiatives that they are presenting, which change year over year.
So by taking this, does this then put pressure to increase our general fund allocation, or is it?
It would pay right now cost neutral for us on the general fund dollar.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Takes us to item number 7, also from the Sheriff's Department, the Kent County Multi-Agency Overtime Traffic Enforcement Grant.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept a Kent County Traffic Enforcement Grant from the Michigan State Police Office of Highway Safety Planning. Appropriate $31,697.14 to the fiscal year 2025 Sheriff Special Project Fund budget, and authorize the board chair or designate to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary. The Michigan State Police Office of Highway Safety Planning, OHSP, has approved $31,697.14 in federal funds for the Kent County Sheriff's Office through the Kent County Multi-Agency Overtime Traffic Enforcement Grant to reduce fatal and serious injury through increased impaired driving enforcement and, to a lesser extent, seatbelt and speed enforcement. Funding is contingent upon the availability of U.S. Department of Transportation highway safety funds. The grant funds will be used to fund overtime and fringes for road patrol officers. The grant period is October 1, 2024 through September 30, 2025. Prior to signature, Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Oliver King, supported by Commissioner Halstead. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Takes us to item number 8 from the Equalization Department, the 2025 Remonumentation Grant.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $121,255 from the State of Michigan Office of Land Survey and Remonumentation to the 2025 Remonumentation Program budget in the fiscal year 2025 Special Projects Fund, and authorize the Board Chair or Equalization Director to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions and amendments. The Board Chair or designee may also increase the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Pursuant to PA 345 of 1990, the state offers an annual grant to counties for providing survey, monumentation, and remonumentation of public land survey corners consistent with the county's plan. Each year, iron survey monument maintenance is performed in Kent County. In 2025, 100 coroners are going to be revisited to check the witnesses, re-witness as necessary, and check the condition of the monuments. This work will be done by professional surveyors. If the monument is found to be destroyed or buried in a hard surface road, it will be passed on to the responsible entity or person according to the Coroner Recordation Act, PA 74 of 1970. The grant period is January 1, 2025 through December 31, 2025. Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner McLeod, supported by Commissioner Sparks. Are there any questions or comments? Commissioner McLeod.
I had lots of questions today. So quick question on this. These is the remonumentation program has always interested me. But I saw a line in here on the action request where if there, actually maybe it was in the other section, but if a monument is shown to be impeded in some ways, it's been destroyed or buried in a hard surface, it says the responsible entity or person will be responsible, I guess, for uncovering it or fixing it. I guess I just want to understand what that is. So if there's someone builds a house and there's a monument that they didn't know about somewhere on that property and it's destroyed, are they going to be responsible for repairing it and doing what needs to be done to get it back in to the condition?
Not in that case, ma'am.
Okay.
We have some grace for things like that, mainly for road reconstruction when they get ripped out or something
Okay.
like that.
Okay. That I just wanted clarity on that because that concerned me. So thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions or comments regarding this item?
Can I make one quick?
Yes.
So interestingly, as many of you know, and maybe some don't, but this act that requires remonumentation was actually proposed by Vern Ehlers when he was in the Michigan legislature. And so he's the fourth one from the left up there on the back wall. And Kent and Oakland and Ottawa were the three that kind of jumped ahead the rest of the crowd, and many changes were made with how the state pays for this overtime, this mandate overtime. But certainly Kent County has done an amazing job of this work over the years.
Any other questions or comments regarding this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. We are on to item number 8 from the Facilities Department, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the agreement with First Steps Kent for the administration of Ready by 5 early childhood millage services. Whoop, did I jump again? I'm sorry. God, I didn't have too much caffeine, I know that. Okay, action requested. Okay, I'm just gonna do that here. Okay. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept $326,600 in grant funds from the U.S. Department of Energy's Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, EECBG program, and to appropriate $326,600 to the FY 2025 Special Projects Fund for the purpose of conducting energy audits of Kent County-owned facilities, and to authorize the board chair or facilities management director to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions and amendments. The board chair or designee is also authorized to increase the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary: Kent County has been awarded $326,600 by the U.S. Department of Energy to conduct energy audits for 25 county-owned facilities totaling 1.6 million square feet. These audits will allow Kent County to identify cost-saving measures that can be implemented to reduce the expense of operating the facilities long-term. Pending the grant acceptance, the county would initiate a request for proposals to hire a consultant to lead the energy audit process and subsequent recommendations. The grant period is November 1, 24 to October 31, 26. Prior to signature, Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Oliver King, supported by Commissioner Sparks. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. When it gets to the spectrum of recommendations that can come out of this? Are these like operational changes such as staff should leave at 4 instead of 5, or is it you need to build a new air conditioning unit because your old one is not very effective? Or all the above?
Good morning. Thanks for your question, Commissioner Steck. So we're going to study HVAC systems, lighting controls, building envelopes. So it really is more of the infrastructure of the building, and looking at the age of those assets and what ones are due for replacement, how technology has changed. We did have a similar grant to this back in 2013. So this will give us an opportunity to organize all of our assets and kind of create an asset management plan so that we're more proactive than reactive in replacing these things and can save costs.
So we can anticipate then that once we get through this, there'll be sort of a list of facilities modifications that are being recommended.
Yes.
And then that goes into what our CIP analysis, and we'll pick it up there.
Yeah, that is my hope, that the outcome of this grant is that I have a great list for the next 5 years focused on return on investment and saving the county money on how we can better utilize our buildings.
And I'm not sure you were here last time we did it, but when we had this done before, you said about 5 years or?
The files that I saw were from 2013.
Okay, so a while ago. Did we actually end up implementing a lot of those?
I
Again,
think
unfair
so.
question because you weren't here.
Right. I haven't dug real deep into the files, to be honest.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. It takes us to item number 10 from the Administrator's Office, Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage Agreement.
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the agreement with First Steps Kent for the administration of Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage Services and to appropriate $142,720 to the fiscal year 2025 Ready by 5 Millage Fund budget. The Kent County Board of Commissioners has contracted with First Steps Kent since May 1 of 2019 to serve as a Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage administrative entity. On August 6, 2024, Kent County voters approved a ballot initiative continuing the Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage for an additional 6 years. It is recommended that a contract with First Steps Kent be executed to continue serving as the administrative entity from January 1, 2025 through September 30, 2026. The new contract with First Steps Kent includes an administrative fee of 7% of the annual millage revenue collected. The administrative fee percentage increased from 5.7% to 7% based on expenditure data from the previous 5 years of millage administration to more accurately reflect the actual cost of service provided to the county, including the total time that First Steps Kent staff devote to millage administration and the other operating expenses tied to the millage administration, such as space, lease, IT, financial services, communications. The estimated cost of $578,797 represents a $142,720 increase over the $436,077 allocation for administration authorized by Board Resolution 8/22/2491. Assistant Corporate Counsel has reviewed and approved the agreement as to form.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Sparks, supported by Commissioner Oliver King. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Stack.
I'm sorry, I'm new. What can I say? Thank you, Chair. So a 20% increase, or maybe a little more than a 20% increase, seems like a fair amount year over year. Can you just, it's suggesting that we underestimated the cost in the first contract? Is that what the problem was?
Yeah, and the first contract was the first time the millage had been in place and administered by First Steps. So I was not here when that contract was established, but it was probably somewhat of a guesstimate based on the past several years of administration, the amount of time that the First Steps staff is spending on millage administration, and then the associated expenses like the examples in the AR have led them to request an increase. We previously, the first agreement was for the entire term of the millage, and that 5.7% was in place for that entire 5+ years. We are going to shift this to an annual agreement like our other similar agreements, and we'll have an opportunity to reassess and make sure we're staying on target. We will be meeting with the First Steps team quarterly to review expenses and see how things are going, because we want to pay attention to the spending. As you said, it is a bit of an increase over the past, so we want to monitor.
But again, we're not picking up a change in cost of living or significant additional responsibilities under this new contract, but we do have 5 years to tell us that we do spend more time on administration than what we anticipated, or First Steps does, excuse me. So this is, and you've looked at this, reviewed it, and you think that's appropriate?
Yes, we reviewed the expenditures since the start of the millage administration, pulled in our fiscal staff to support that review, and I think this is the right move at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the team at First Steps. They have been absolutely amazing. And I know that when they first started, of course, it was a guesstimate. You know, there's been so much time and dedication put towards this project. Thank you for everything that you've done too, Miss Jenny. Excuse me. So I'm glad that we're able to realize the amount that they need for the increase and be able to approve that, because this is a very important program, you know, in our county. So it's a national model. People are looking at it, and I'm very proud of the work that they do. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Takes us to item number 11 from the Administrator's Office, Fiscal Year 2026 Budget Process Guidelines.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the following list of guidelines to be used in preparation of the fiscal year 2026 county budget. Summary. The County Administrator Controller is directed to present a general fund budget that is structurally balanced and to establish the appropriate budget targets to achieve the goals laid out in the Board's strategic plan. Zero-based budgeting will be utilized for all line items so that each department should assume that the account rolls back to zero at year end. They will need to rebuild the rationale for all expenditures within that line item. There will be additional general fund resources provided for requested new positions that meet a critical need or provide a vital service. According to the Capital Improvement Program policy, a minimum of 0.20 mils of the general property tax levy will be set aside for capital improvements for the FY 2026 budget. The Board of Commissioners will have a work session on February 13, 2025 to provide input on the FY 2026 budget.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner McLeod, supported by Commissioner Sparks. Any questions or comments? Commissioner McLeod.
So I do appreciate how this process is laid out, and there's some clear opportunities for the board to be engaged. I just am wondering about I know that we've got a work session scheduled next week to provide input on the budget priorities, but it just seems pretty quick from the point of time when we're approving the guidelines themselves. Is there any consideration of another date to allow the commissioners to be able to have additional time to kind of get themselves up to speed on the budget itself before prioritizing?
Sure. Yes. So what we could do at this first date is just show you what's been requested in CIP to see if you have any suggestions for anything additional that you as commissioners. I just think back to the year before I got here. The CIP was about done, and then there was kind of some stress between staff and commissioners over heated bathrooms. So the idea would be, if there are ideas like that, you could let us know maybe on the 13th. We could have another session like that just to get kind of broad input on board priorities in the budget. Maybe a month later, I think the 27th of March was another date where we could do something like that, if that's acceptable.
I just wanted to give a little bit of background too. I know I've heard from a number of our colleagues here that they wanted to have some input on the budget ahead of it being presented to us, because it's a little hard to, unbake the cake once it's baked. So we thought that this would be a good opportunity to at least give the priorities of the board to the staff ahead of time, so that they can take those into consideration before they make the budget, and just have that opportunity for our board to give what our priorities are ahead of a presentation. But I would be open to another session if we think that that's necessary. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, again, I like the structure that's set up. I think that it makes sense, and I appreciate the opportunity for us to be able to, share our priorities as a board. I just want to ensure that we have enough time to consider what's really, on the table in terms of the budget before we're tasked with providing those priorities.
I don't have.
Commissioner Stack.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was just going to acknowledge Al and staff for putting this flow chart and process chart together. I think it's really helpful for us to see the entire process in a singular page and know where we fit. So it's probably not radically different, but it is nice to see.
And I know that these are some changes that we've been making or attempting to make. So I'm certainly open to suggestions on ways that we can improve it. That's something that I kind of wanted to work on as finance chair. So please don't hesitate to come to me. Are there any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. That takes us to item number 12, the 17th Circuit Court Quality Legal Guardian Ad Litem Grant.
Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept $425,000 in grant funds from the State of Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and to appropriate $425,000 to the Circuit Court Fiscal Year 2025 Special Projects Fund budget to improve the quality of legal advocacy for vulnerable children and their families in the Kent County welfare system, and to authorize the board chair or circuit court administrator to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions and amendments. The board chair or designee is also authorized to increase the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary. The Circuit Court wishes to accept a grant from the State of Michigan DHHS Services in the amount of $425,000 to identify, implement, and cultivate programs designed to improve the quality of legal representation for children and parents in child protected hearings. The grant will allow for the Circuit Court to institute best practices to attract and retain experienced and dedicated attorneys and reduce reliance on substitute attorneys to ensure the continuity of representation throughout court proceedings and improve the quality of legal advocacy for vulnerable children and families. The grant will allow the Circuit Court to provide for specialized medication services to quickly identify issues, increase trust in the legal process, and facilitate better outcomes for children and families in the child welfare system. The grant period is December 1, 2024 to September 30, 2025. Prior to signature, Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form.
Is there a motion? Moved by Commissioner Sparks, supported by Commissioner Oliver King. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Stack.
All right, so I'm not this will be administered by the court.
Correct.
Andy will do this one, but I wasn't quite sure. Is most of this money simply going to pay attorneys more? Nothing wrong with that, but pay attorneys a higher rate of compensation to make sure you're getting better counsel, more consistent counsel? I mean, is that what we're looking at?
Great question. Sandra Vanderhyde, the Deputy Circuit Court Administrator. It is to increase their fees, but also then to expand so we can cover more services that they'll be doing. Because with this holistic approach, they'll also be able to help with housing, help with guardianship, help with child custody type cases. So it's to both increase and to expand the coverage, as well as there's a good portion of this that would go towards mediation services. So hopefully we can prevent removals prior to adjudication.
So, but we already have mediation services in place, so this will be funding, putting cases through that?
And these are different mediation services that are specific just to neglect and abuse cases.
And we don't have that in currently?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So just for this is guardian ad litem. We get a lot of questions about the guardianship program, which is a totally different situation than this.
Yes, guardian litem is the attorneys for the children and families.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. We are on to item number 13 from the Department of Public Works, Foam Recycling Coalition Grant.
Action requested. Accept $50,000 in grant funds from the Food Service Packing Institute, Inc. for the Kent County Department of Public Works to establish a residential commercial polystyrene foam collection drop-off program at the recycling collection facility located at the North Kent Transfer Station. Summary. DPW has been awarded $50,000 in a one-time grant from the Food Service Packing Institute, Inc. polystyrene foam, styrofoam, while recyclable is not accepted at the Kent County Recycling and Education Center since the material is difficult to separate from single-stream recyclables and causes operational challenges. There is a significant gap in collection locations since given the material must be densified prior to shipping to an intermediate market for processing. DPW proposed to establish a collection drop-off at the North Kent Transfer Station per the county's fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations. The board has granted the Finance Committee authorization to approve acceptance of grant funding over $25,000. The grant period is 8/15/24 to 8/15/27. Corporate Counsel has reviewed and approved the contract as to form.
Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Oliver King, supported by Commissioner Steck. Any questions or comments? Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm excited about this program. I thought that, wasn't there a pilot done prior to this related to the styrofoam? Is there anyone here from DPW? No, there is not. I just wondered if we could get some information. I think there was a pilot
We'll
on
check
this.
on that.
Yeah, I just like to see if this is just going to be extending that or if it is something going to be totally new.
We don't have any of our DPW board members in this group either, so, but we'll get.
We have a former one here. That was too easy.
So there wasn't a former pilot on this. But this grant was awarded almost a year ago, I would say. And there is definitely a need in the system for this. It's one of the most requested items in the disposal guide for people to find a way to dispose of their packaging foam. Particularly, this is not for food packaging. This is for the TV box that you get with the big foam. So people will be able to bring that to North Kent Transfer Station. It gets heated and densified and then put on a truck and sent to another facility to actually be processed. But you can imagine sending a giant truck full of polystyrene is not the most efficient unless you really densify it and compact it. So that's what this grant is.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And now I take that hat off.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other questions or comments regarding this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes, and we are on to our financial status report. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Morning, Commissioners, staff. So yeah, this is the first quarter of 2024-25 fiscal year. This is actually the first quarter we can really compare to the previous quarter with our new fiscal year. So it's good to see comparisons to last year in this report. You can see overall on page 2, revenues have increased from 39.1 million to 43.7 million, just under 12%. So a good increase. A lot of that is attributed to tax collections. Taxes coming in a little bit quicker than last quarter. There is a huge drop in investment, rents, and royalties, and that's due to the market adjustment that we had to make at 9/30, which is a weird calculation that Treasurer has to do per state statutes. So we reversed that first quarter, so that shows the big decline in interest revenue there. So the other categories are tracking charges for services. That's mainly related to recording fees, real estate transfer tax, that kind of thing. So on the expenditure side, you can see we went from 47.3 million up to 49.1 million, 3.8% Personnel's up mostly in that category, and that's consistent with wage and staffing increases. So nothing out of the ordinary there. We move on to page 4. You can see this a different presentation of the same numbers. Revenues categories are the same, but this shows the expenditures by department. The IT department is one of the biggest changes here, and that's due to timing of some of the contracts we paid out. You can see clerk register of deeds is up quite a bit too due to the election. So anyway, we track all this, nothing out of the ordinary there. Most of this in the first quarter is timing differences, so nothing unusual. Moving on to page 5, you can see our total fund balance, $113.8 million. That's estimated as of September 30. That is pre-audited numbers. You can see 39.5 assigned to economic stabilization and 54.3 million to cash flow. So very good fund balance position as of 9/30 of 24. Moving on to page 6, you'll see our cash on hand calculation, 86 days, 82.8 million. There is a strange negative debt service amount there, 1.1, and that's just the timing of an internal transfer as well. So that will be corrected in the next quarter. Moving on to page 7, this is our cash flow graph where we track why we need substantial fund balance throughout the year. You can see our low point is June, July, and that's right prior to our taxes coming in. You'll see the big dip last year, and that was related to some capital transfers we made prior to taxes coming in. So we're going to try to time that a little bit better this year, but overall everything is tracking just similarly to previous years, so nothing of alarm there. Page 8, we've included in the last several reports. This is a lodging excise tax, and this fund has gotten a little more complicated with the transfers to Grand Rapids for some debt payments. You'll note, though, that the transient tax, pretty similar to last year, up 7% the first quarter. Overall, last year, 4.3% taxes were up throughout the year, so a good growth there. You see, again, interest earnings are down again, and that's through that mark-to-market the first quarter. You'll see an increase to Experience Grand Rapids, and that's the increase we negotiated with the new tax, up to 70% of the total. And then you also see we made the bond payment is in the first quarter of the year. So you'll see a loss in the fund this first quarter always, and that's due to obviously the payment early in the fiscal year. So we also have some reservations in there. You'll see the contribution from the CAA for the bond reserve. And then you'll see that going out to the city of Grand Rapids. Those two bonds that's going to cover have not been issued by Grand Rapids yet, but they should be here, I think, by the end of April. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions? Commissioner McLeod.
I just had one quick question. On the expenditure report, it showed a 400 and some % increase for the medical examiner. Could you just speak to that?
Yeah, that was odd. It's not very large amount dollar related, but that was due to year-end reversal accrual of the autopsies for the year. So it's an accounting thing. We accrue them and then accrue it back. So it was a lot. There was a lot more in the early part of the year the previous year. So that's what accounted for that difference. So.
Any other question? Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. So always interested in the hotel motel tax, given all the conversations last year. It looks like the actual revenue from hotel stays is up from last quarter or the first quarter of last year. Is it consistent with our projections? I know we did a lot of projections going into the decisions we made last year. Is this still consistent with those?
It's actually a little bit higher than what we projected, a 3% overall increase year over year. And I believe, like I said, 2024 ended up 4.3% in revenues overall. That's an actual calendar year, not a first quarter year. So we track it. But yeah, we exceeded our expectations in our estimates.
Okay, good.
So good, yeah, good news there.
Any other questions or comments for Jeff this morning? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any, that takes us to item 15, miscellaneous. Is there any commissioner miscellaneous? Commissioner Oliver King.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to congratulate Commissioner Monica Sparks and her sister for being awarded a Giants Award this past Saturday. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Is there any other commissioner miscellaneous? Okay, if not, then we are adjourned. Thank you all.